We're now just about 7 months into lockdown here in the US and worldwide, and a lot of us are still working from home. While we may have settled into whatever our individual routines are, there's still a lot of room for companies to adapt, whether it comes to, building out their own products or just deploying solutions to their teams. So today we're going to be discussing how some of these companies can adapt, what gaps are missing, and what that means, in the end for the everyday employee. So stick around. Hey everyone, welcome back to Today in Tech. I'm Julia Beauchamp, and I'm here as always with Computer World Executive Editor Ken Mingus and Macworld and PC World writer Michael Simon. So Ken, I'm going to throw it to you first, since this is really, a very computer worldy kind of thing to discuss. And there was a great article on
I'll just interject
World.
with jokes and puns every now and again.
Yeah, perfect.
That's why you're here, Michael. Yes, thanks.
He's the comedic
you
relief.
I'm going to play to the crowd.
So there was this great article on Computer World from Johnny Evans that was discussing how Zoom has sort of been one of the runaway successes of lockdown. It's, by far the most, Google became a verb. Zoom is now a verb when it comes to talking about your work life and working from home. And his article was comparing that to what Apple's FaceTime could have been. So could you go into a little bit more detail about that and what Apple's sort of enterprise work from home play has been, if any?
Okay. Yeah, exactly. And to answer that question really quickly, there hasn't been an Apple work from home play. The post that you're talking about, Johnny Evans had written that for Computer World, talking about how Zoom, which, as you make the point, was already popular as a video conferencing app before the pandemic. And then because it offers the ease of use and, a lot of flexibility and features,
and it's free.
It's free. Yeah, well, free is always good. We like that. That a lot of people gravitated toward it naturally. And so Johnny's, his idea, the piece that he wrote was basically that Zoom could have been or is what FaceTime could have been. Apple could have done something like this years ago because FaceTime's been around for a long time. In some ways it kind of, what's that?
10 years.
Wow, exactly. Okay. So with a 10-year head start, when it comes to video conferencing, with coworkers and of course friends after work, people think about Zoom first. Companies we have found that companies are doing this in a variety of ways. Some of them are sort of letting their workers sort of build their own stack. They've got Slack in one corner, they've got Outlook over here, they've got Zoom in front of them, and they kind of pull the information together, however it works best for them. Then you've got companies that have embraced sort of the whole suite approach, like Microsoft Teams, which kind of does everything in one fell swoop. A lot of this, I think a lot of people thought early on that we would get the pandemic under control and that maybe by certainly this fall or certainly by the first of the year, you'd be seeing sort of a return to normalcy. But clearly that doesn't seem to be what's going to happen. So now companies have to figure out, okay, we've done the triage, we've gotten everybody up and running on something, but what do we do now? How do we spend the money now to keep everybody connected, maybe for the indefinite future, certainly into 2021? But in terms of where Apple is, it's never been really a play for them to do the enterprise thing, at least around video conferencing or video software. They're much more about mobile and mobile management when there's, mobile, basically managing all the iPhones and iPads and, Macs that are in the office now. But when it comes to something like collaboration and working together, I haven't seen it. Michael, tell me I'm wrong.
I mean, you're not wrong, but what's interesting is that FaceTime, so we said it was 10 years ago, almost exactly. No, it was June. So over 10 years when they had the call between Steve Jobs and I think it was Johnny Ive. And it was mind blowing at the time. You couldn't do that on a cell phone. It just didn't happen. And along with the demonstration and how cool it was on, I think it was the iPhone 4. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think that's right. Yeah.
He said it's based on H.264 and AAC and quote unquote a whole alphabet of acronyms, and we're taking it all the way. We are going to the standards bodies tomorrow. And we are going to make this an open standard for everybody. And everyone cheered, and it was wonderful, and it never happened. Now, there's no way to know exactly what happened there. Maybe it's a privacy thing, and Apple couldn't get the Android and the PC and the web version to its liking with privacy stuff. There was also patent issues. I forget the name of the company, but there was a company that they were fighting with back in 2010, 2011 that claimed it owned patents, and Apple had to change some stuff in FaceTime for it to work and not infringe on those patents. So maybe it's that. But the bottom line is Apple was so far ahead of the game, just like, we've talked about this with Siri, which came out a year later. They were so far ahead of the game. And then they just, I'm not going to say they dropped the ball because FaceTime is still great. But when this pandemic hit, they could have been number one. They could have been the Zoom of not just Apple, but of anything. And this is kind of where its ecosystem both helps and hurts. So I'm sure if you look at the stats of FaceTime, which we're not privy to, they are through the roof. People who have iPhones and iPads and Macs are using them constantly, and they're private, and they're, it's fantastic. FaceTime and video and audio. It's a great video service. It's the best I've used. It blows Google Duo out of the water. It's easy. It's the quality is good, but it's Apple only. You cannot call somebody else. You got to have an iPhone. You got to have an iPad. And yeah, it's super private, and it is what it is. But when you get to something like Zoom, so you're not calling just your iPhone employees. We're calling everybody, and you're stuck. You can't use an Apple service to do that. And as you say, I don't really see a world where that happens now. Apple's selling just as many iPhones and iPads and everything else as ever, and I don't know what the motivation would be now to do that. There's more Android phones out there, but I don't think Apple cares. They have their little ecosystem, and it's a little. They have their ecosystem, and that's it. They're content to let it be more of a person-to-person, peer-to-peer network than this like expansive enterprise meeting thing.
Well, I think you made a couple of really good points. First of all, yes, on Siri. That was the first thing I thought of as a technology that they had a jump start on, that for whatever reason they've fallen behind.
There are some signs with HomePod Mini and a couple of the things that came out with iOS 14.1 that they're finally starting to take it a little bit more seriously, but that's for another time. We can talk about that some other time.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Julia, write that down for when we have nothing else to talk about.
Like over the winter time. No, but you also make the point, cross-platform is key, because it is the walled garden. And I think that actually ties into the other point you made about privacy. It may very well be that Apple, could go cross-platform, but maybe can't do it in a way that protects privacy the way Apple seems to want to protect privacy. Therefore, it's willing to step back and let us do what we're doing on a Zoom call. And yet at night, if you want to call mom on the iPhone, using FaceTime, you can do that. One thing to remember, Zoom has had some serious growing pains.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There were a lot
out for this.
there's a reason that Zoom bombing is also part of the lexicon now, and that's because basically, they were not prepared. No one was really prepared for it, but they really weren't prepared for the exponential growth they've seen. They've made a lot of steps to try to tighten things down. A lot of it was the way, preferences were set up in Zoom that allowed people to sort of get into a call without necessarily being, authorized to be there. And things like that have been locked down.
Because it never was a thing. Like, what are you going to do?
Why would you want to drop into somebody's call and
paying attention to it? Yeah. Now there's exponential more Zoom calls being made. This is going back in March, April, and that's what happens when something's popular. Somebody else wants to hack it. That's how, and it wasn't even a hack. It was wide open.
Well, it's interesting though, just to look at this a little more broadly, moving beyond just Apple per se. Zoom, I think it was last week, started talking about Zaps, Zoom apps. So what they're looking to do is start to build out,
Can we not use that name, Kim?
Zaps? Why?
I'm
okay.
opposed to it.
You're what?
I'm opposed to it. I don't like the combining of things.
Z apps. Well, that's what they call them. I didn't call them.
Well, you can call them whatever they want. We'll call them Zoom apps.
All right, the Zoom apps. Yes. Okay. Yes. I want to be sensitive to your feelings there. Zoom apps. The point being, though, that Zoom, which is obviously focused on video conferencing, is looking for ways to add hooks so that people can tie in third-party apps and software, which allows you to do more. And you launch Zoom if you want to share a document, if you want to send a message, whatever, you can do that better. Microsoft Teams. Microsoft has been really responsive with Teams this year. I can't remember the exact whatever the feature it is, but it allows you to sort of see everybody in your call as if they're sitting in an auditorium, or maybe a sports stadium. But the whole point being that they're looking for ways to make this video, conferencing world that we live in now more palatable. Because again, we're seeing this is not going to be 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and back to normal. I don't think we go back to normal after this.
Yeah. And, for Microsoft and Zoom, is Zoom the company or Zoom the app? I don't even know.
Zoom's the company.
Zoom. Okay.
Zoom.
And also Google, who really got the ball rolling on Meet. That was nothing until the pandemic. That's the play. Software is the surface. Software is the ecosystem. Apple has a completely different business model than all of those companies. And if they start giving away free meeting software, no one's going to want to buy an iPad. And that's the inherent issue. We talk about privacy, and that might be part of it. Money is the biggest part of it. Profitability. They don't. If you think about the cross-platform applications they offer, Apple TV, paid service, Apple Music, paid service, iTunes Store, paid service. They don't give stuff. Apple's not in the business of giving things away. We don't even have an iCloud app on Android. They want you to stay on an Apple product, and that's it. We're lucky we have iCloud.com for PCs where we can access our email, because the play is to stay in the garden.
Well, the play is to use the software to drive you to the hardware. That's
I don't know if that works. Does it? Let's say the software is that good. What do they say? Why buy the cow when you get the milk for free? Whatever that expression is. If Apple builds a killer conferencing app that everybody wants to use on anything they're on, why not just buy a Galaxy S20 over an iPhone or a Dell, whatever, over a Mac?
Yeah, that's actually, you're making the same point, which is basically, if you want this killer app, you're going to have to buy the hardware,
Mm-hmm. I'm wondering too, we just talked a lot about software, and I think, Ken, maybe like at the tail end of a video that we did, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago now, I think you sort of, offhand, perhaps the joke said, is Apple or any other sort of hardware company or hardware first company that you think of, the Samsungs and Apples of the world, going to now get into, webcams because there's such an appetite for them. I think I'm wondering if that's just like, if that's ever going to happen. It kind of seems probably not, but
if anyone's going to do it, Samsung will.
Yeah, I can see Samsung. Well, the reason I said that, I think it was, I can't remember now what hardware Apple had announced, but they had finally included a video camera that was beyond 720p.
That was the latest iMac.
Yeah, it was the new iMac. That's right. And it finally has a 1080p camera, and again, 2016 called and wants its webcam back.
Right, yeah.
But they finally did. And to me, that felt like at least a tacit acknowledgement that we're going to be sitting in front of our Macs and iMacs, our computers in general, looking at these cameras for a long time,
Yeah.
And so at least.
I'm sorry, Ken, I thought you were done.
No, go ahead.
Samsung and Apple, and they make phones, they make tablets, all of which have cameras. So they are there. The idea of like the webcam, it's very much as you guys say, enterprise thing. Like my parents aren't buying webcams. Kids aren't buying webcams. They use their phones. They use their computer. They use whatever is readily available. What Apple needs to really increase the quality of their webcams, and I think they will once these new Apple Silicon Macs come out. I think that'll be a priority, because it's laughably bad. Now, I have a webcam here because I can't use the camera because you guys wouldn't be able to see me. It's terrible.
I know that would be horrifying.
Yeah.
720 is certainly, 1080p is sort of like the basics for
that's the baseline.
But do you really need it? You don't need a 4K camera.
No,
if you're sitting
I'm
here
not calling
doing
for that
what we're
at all.
doing.
God,
no. It's
universal high def.
Wait a minute, it wouldn't be that bad.
When we're all
I
sitting
like
at
seeing
home
you with
in
a
our
little
sweats.
bit of blur, Ken.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, no one needs high quality of me sitting at home when I'm not in the office in my full matching sweatsuit. So I think 1080 is maybe okay.
That's probably as good as we want to go. But to get back to your original point, Apple's not making a play for enterprise collaboration. A lot of companies are. Companies, trying to figure out how best to proceed now have at least some experience under the belts, as it were. They can tell, what apps their employees are using, which has been the most trouble prone when it comes to getting them set up, or which is the most insecure if you're a company that's in an industry like financial services or healthcare, and privacy is an issue. You might want to rethink that whole Zoom video conferencing until end-to-end encryption is in place. So there's,
I don't know if that's ever going to happen. I don't even know. I mean, that's beyond my pay grade, but I don't even know if it really can without some serious overhaul of their back end, which I don't know if they're willing to put the time, effort, and money into, especially when millions of people are using it happily without it.
Well, and that's where you see something like, maybe Microsoft Teams, which comes along and says, we can protect your security and safety and your data in a way that, these other companies may not be able to. Again, we'll see how that unfolds in 2021. Companies have some experience now. I'll be curious to see, where we see growth in the next 3 to 6 months in terms of who's using these apps and which ones, whether it's the suite or the buffet table of everything you want.
Yeah. Did Zoom announce like a camera, or Teams? Didn't one of them announce they were selling a product of some sort?
They announced a screen. It was like a 27-inch monitor, and I'm like, well, why would Zoom? I don't know. It looked like it was some sort of weird hardware play that was fairly well ridiculed pretty early on, because it's like, why do I want just a screen that does one thing? Zoom. I've got an iMac. I've got a PC. I've got a big monitor. I don't need the Zoom branded 25-inch or 27-inch, whatever it was. So I don't think that's going to get a lot of traction. I don't think it has, and I don't think it will.
Sure. Yeah. So the hardware play maybe not relevant
right
now.
Not they should stick to software and working on security.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always, the Logitechs out there that sell, great cameras for affordable prices. People trust them. They know them. Those are the ones that are going to sell always.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing what Apple can do with the webcam, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
Agreed.
Fair enough. And also worth mentioning before we wrap up, I am pretty certain that Zoom has plans to roll out end-to-end encryption sometime. I think they announced plans at Zoomtopia, so I'm sure.
I'm sorry. Are we making up more words again?
I'm gonna zaps. That's your trigger word, Michael. I'm gonna remember that.
We can't just put Z in front of everything and make it a thing.
Zaps.
I think they can.
Zen encryption.
And we're done.
and I think it's a wrap now. So thank you both so much for joining me this week. I really appreciate it. And like you mentioned, Ken, there's going to be a lot of room to adapt over the next 3 to 6 months, especially as we near sort of the 1-year mark of lockdown. I think companies are being pretty realistic about the fact that a lot of employees are probably not going to return to work in full-time in-office capacity anytime soon, if ever. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. So thank you both so much once again. And thank you all so much for watching this episode of Today in Tech. If you liked this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. If you have huge hopes for Apple FaceTime and you really wish you could use it at work, let us know in the comments below. Or if you think it's irrelevant, if we missed some collaboration hardware or software device or application that you feel like you need to talk about, once again, let me know in the comments. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.